Welcome to the Stepmom Side with Alicia Crasco, the podcast for stepmoms ready to create the life they want and one they actually have a say in. Here we talk all things stepmom life and just a little bit more. Leave the superficial conversations at the door and get ready for perspective shifts and actionable advice to help you on your way to creating the life you want, one step at a time. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Stepmom Side podcast. This week's topic is going to be pretty relatable because it's about when the ex is always around and how to keep your sanity in your marriage or your relationship intact. This is probably something I hear the most from stepmoms. Like, how do I do this? Like, how do I get through this? Now, listen, I have been in a blended family for over 10 years, 13 if you want to be like specific, exact. And so I've gone through a lot of different things, like having smaller stepchildren. And then now, like, they're completely out of the house. And so we've dealt with a lot of different ebbs and flows of relationships. And, my stepkids' mom being super present and super in the picture and not, and like what that looks like and how it's changed throughout like our blended family journey. So here's why this topic is so relatable for stepmoms, because it seems like no matter where you turn, the ex, your stepkids' mom, is always there. Always, always there. It's like you can never get away from her. And just like a quick side note, if you are referring to your stepkids' mom as like baby mama or HCBM, like high conflict bio mom, like please stop. Like in my community and in my content, I always say the mom or TM because at the end of the day, that's what she is. Like, but calling her baby mom, like it perpetuates that mentality, if you will. Like she's just a baby mama. And, there's all the stigmas that come along with baby mama. So it's just like getting over the ex and like navigating through relationships with her and like having her around because she has to be around, right? Like she's your stepkids' mom. Like it sucks. So we're going to work on like a few different things. So let's talk about the reality of the ex is everywhere. And it can feel like your stepkids' mom is always present, right? Like there's the co-parenting logistics, like kid drop-offs, pickups, school events, sporting events, all of the different things. Like it feels like she's everywhere, but then also there's social media. Maybe you see them maybe you see her like on your partner's feed. Maybe you follow her, like even worse, like you follow her, especially if you guys don't have a good relationship. I definitely do not recommend that you guys follow each other. Like I've talked to different stepmoms in the stepmom side community about this. Like, Alicia, I don't want to follow her and I don't want her following me, but she has to, or I have a public account because of my profession or whatever. But here's the thing. If you guys aren't friends on Facebook, if you don't follow each other on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, whatever social media platform you use, that's okay. I don't think it's a requirement, again, like case by case, but I don't feel like it's a requirement for you to follow her or for her to follow you on social media, especially if it's going to cause you that much more anxiety. I definitely don't recommend following her, having her follow you. There's a good chance, though, because let's talk about this. There's a good chance, though, that your partner may follow her. And if you're sitting there like, there's no way in hell he does, perfect. That's great. Skip this part, like skip ahead like a minute or two. But if your partner follows his ex on social media to see pictures of the kids or maintain that contact, let me ask you this. What is it to you? Yes, I know that like it might pop up on his feed or whatever, but is it worth the turmoil in your relationship, in your marriage, to fight about like who he's following on social media, specifically concerning his ex? There's other situations, right, where you could be having an issue about that. But when it comes to his ex, if he's just following her for pictures or whatever the case may be, again, that's not our situation. If that's your situation, I am sending you all of the love. Just the question I have for you is this a hill you want to die on? Is it worth the turmoil in your relationships? I just want to acknowledge an emotional trigger. Having the ex or your stepkids' mom pop up on your social media feed or your partner's feed, that is an emotional trigger. That is something that it's completely normal, completely natural to feel overwhelmed or annoyed by or just upset by. Like it's completely normal. Like this woman has a past with your partner. This woman at one point in time was a big deal to your partner. They have a kid together. Unfortunately, she now has to be around or she's going to be in the picture forever. And that's going to ebb and flow though, right? Like if your stepkids are little, like she's going to be in the picture more now, but then when they graduate, get their own lives, like do their own thing, she's not going to be in the picture as much. But it's just a season that you're going through now. It will not be like this forever, even though it definitely feels like this. I'm just telling you, it's completely normal and natural to feel annoyed, overwhelmed, insecure, jealous, frustrated, like bent out of shape. It's completely normal to like absolutely feel all of those things. Let's talk about your partner and specifically like with social media, and then we'll go back to like drop offs and all of that. Let's set the scene for what's really happening versus what feels like it's happening. If you were to sit down and be honest with yourself, because right now, right, like stepmom to stepmom, I'm just going to tell you, like, it feels like she's everywhere, right? Especially if it's like on social media. Maybe one time he opened his social media and her post showed up and you're like, oh my God, every time he opens social media, it shows up, right? That's what it feels like. But what really happens is it was probably that one time. So there's a very, very, very big contrast between what it feels like and what's really happening. Same thing with like pickup, drop offs, transition days, school events, sporting events, like all of the things. It feels like she's literally everywhere, like literally everywhere. Like I want to go one whole day without having to think about my partner, my husband's ex, or my stepkids' mom. Like I just want to make it through one day without having to feel like that or having to think about her. And here's the thing, if you think about her, she's going to be everywhere. 100% she's going to be everywhere. But if you were to sit down and list out in a day, we'll do like Sunday to Saturday. So in a 7-day stretch, how many times do you see her? How many times does she text or call or email or pop into your head? How many times? Because what it feels like is it feels like she's everywhere. But the reality of the situation is she's probably living rent free in your head. She's running marathons in your head. And that doesn't feel good. So it feels like she's always there. So, but really, you might see her on a pickup or a drop off day. So one or maybe two times. You might see her at a sporting event. You might see her practice if you're at a practice. You might have a text or a phone call. So if it's one time, let's say it's one time a day. Let's be conservative here and say it's one time a day for 7 days. Of that 7 days, how many hours out of those 7 days do you spend thinking about your stepkids' mom? What does it feel like you feel? Like, what does it feel like you spend thinking about her versus how much do you actually see her? So just be mindful of that. Like, I don't know because I'm not you and I'm not in your situation, but what is actually happening? Because I know what it feels like. It's very anxiety inducing and overwhelming and frustrating and annoying and all of the things. But what, like, let's be honest, like, what is really, really happening? And when you find that you're down and out about this, please communicate with your partner. And here's the thing, I want you to be very careful when you are approaching the situation because there's a very good chance that you guys fight a lot about stepmom things or blended family things or things concerning your stepkids or things concerning, the ex. And if you just go in guns blazing to your partner, it's going to come out like a bash session, right? Like, oh, you're just bashing her. All you ever say is terrible things about her. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to say, I feel like instead of your ex is, insert whatever. And what happens is it puts the onus on you. Like, I'm feeling this because of the situation. I'm feeling anxious or overwhelmed or frustrated or insecure or whatever the case may be about her being in our life. And you know what? Honestly, there's nothing that you can do about that. Like, she's in some capacity going to be in your life. That is the reality of the situation. But if you go in and you're like, I'm so sick of her being around, blah, 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 all of the things, there's not really anything that your partner can do But if you go in and say, I'm feeling this, they can at least empathize with you. And maybe it's not exactly what you want. And maybe it's not to the degree that you want, but it's your partner. They probably have never been a stepmom. I can guarantee you they've never been a stepmom, but they don't understand the situation that you're in. They don't understand the role that you're in. This is where getting outside support is going to be beneficial for you. Like find a girlfriend, join the stepmom side community, like get coaching, like find a group of stepmoms that you can make friends with and just like commiserate over. And it really helps for you and your partner, though, to set boundaries. Like, what is too much X time for your comfort level? Maybe it's you skip out on going to school events. Maybe it's you skip out on going to sporting events. Maybe it's you skip out on going to practices. Maybe it's you skip out on going to transition time. Maybe like pick up and drop offs. Maybe you do pick up and drop offs at her house, and maybe you don't even see her, but it's just the fact that you are there in the vicinity of her house, like the possibility of possibly seeing her gets you like your heart pumping. If that's the case, please don't go. Please don't do that. Again, it goes back to, is it worth the turmoil in your relationship? Or even more importantly, like, is it worth the turmoil like in yourself? Like, at some point, your mental health is more important. And this is one of those things. Now, having said that, if you decide to not go to transition day, like good for you, but you also can't be a jerk about it before. I know that there's a lot of anxiety running around. I know that there's a lot of overwhelm and uneasy and the uncertainties and all of that factor in like what mood are the kids going to be in, what's the latest that's going to happen, how long is my partner going to be gone, all of the things. Find something for you to do, whether you run a bath for you, whether you get a workout in, go grab some coffee, go out to dinner, meet a friend, whatever it is. If, and this is something that I say to stepmoms that I coach that really struggle with transition time. I'm like, if you struggle on transition day, here's my advice to you. So if you're multitasking, come back to me. If you struggle on transition day and you are like, you just have a really, really hard time with it, my advice to you is this: go do something outside of the house. So that way, when your partner and your stepkid or stepkids come back, you're not there and everyone can kind of settle in and like do their thing. And then you can come back. So everyone's got time to just like breathe and like get into the house and like do all of the things. And you can come back when it's a little bit quieter. But what is too much X time, meaning like talking about the X for you, communicate that with your partner. And if you need to step out of things, step out of things. It's okay. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be stepping out of things forever, but hey, you know what? To your partner, hey, you know what? I'm struggling with X, Y, and Z. So I'm going to take a step back from insert whatever it is, wherever the X may be that you see her. And it's going to be for X amount of time. Like, let's have a deadline on that because sometimes we get caught in, I mean, I absolutely have done this, but sometimes we get caught in the this is the one thing that I can hold on to, like for control. I'm going to make sure that I never see her again. I never have to talk to her again. I never what that is not helpful. Like you put yourself in this tower and you're not coming down. It's like drinking poison and hoping that the other person dies. No, you're the only one that's like getting angrier and angrier and like letting it control you. Like sometimes the more you run from a situation, like the more it controls you. But also, like, I want you guys to align on your priorities. Like, what is important for your relationship and the family that you're building? Focus on that. Focus on your relationship. Like I said, is this worth the turmoil in your relationship? No? Okay, then let's not let that outside factor come in between the two of you. So let's make sure that your relationship is strong. Let's make sure that your relationship within your family, like you and your partner and your stepkids, like let's make sure that that's good. Let's work on building that and focusing on that. And one of my favorite things, I do this in coaching. So if you're listening to this and you do coaching with me, like you know that we do this. Maybe you could try like role playing of what not to say followed by better ways to phrase it. And I always say you can't start out like this, but now I can add in humor and I can add in sarcasm. I could not do that at first. I was so tightly wound around the axle. Like nothing was funny. I was not about to make it funny. And if anyone was going to make it funny, it was going to be me, but only when I wanted to and only when I was feeling it. And I will tell you, you can't start there, or there's a good chance that you're probably not going to be able to start there. But at some point, hopefully, you get to the point where you can add in a little bit of sarcasm or a little bit of humor, like, oh my gosh, do you remember when I used to be so tightly wound? My husband and I can joke about it now. Since we talked about aligning your priorities, like with your relationship and your family, can we talk about, we're going to swing back a little bit to handling social media? If your stepkids' mom is all over your partner's social media feed, a few things that you can do about that, like just aligning for you guys, like what that looks like. Can you block them? Can you mute that person? You know, sometimes you can go in and just mute them, like you don't see their feed. I mean, you don't see their posts, you don't see their stories, or can you just ignore it? You know, maybe if you are really struggling with it, you could block them. If you're not really struggling with that much, maybe they just mute them so you don't see your posts or you don't see their posts or their stories. And hopefully you get to the point where you can just ignore it and like it doesn't matter. And there's pros and cons to each approach, right? So if you go in and you're like, you need to block her, and your partner goes in and blocks the ex on social media, there's probably going to be a conversation, right? Depending on what platform it is and if they're friends or not, and all of the things. The good thing is that your anxiety is better, but also at what cost, right? So if that works for them and their co-parenting relationship and it's not affecting you and your relationship, it might be affecting your anxiety. I would say let it, that's like something to let go. Now, if your partner is like fawning all over her posts and stories, girlfriend, that's a different story. We need to have a conversation about that. But they can just mute them. Like that's a great way. Sometimes it's not, and here's why I say that. Sometimes it's not worth rocking the boat on, to be 100% honest with you. If you go in and you block the ex and you know that it's kind of a high conflict situation, there's going to be something that comes out of it. Just go in and mute them so you don't see, so your partner doesn't see or you don't see the stories or the posts. Just do that. Sometimes it's not worth the whole blocking thing. And you want to keep your social media space a positive X-free zone without it being petty, right? Without all of the drama that's going to come with it. Because here's the thing, there's a chance that whatever your relationship looks like now, it might look different in 6 months. It might look different in a year. It might look different in a few years, or it might have looked different years ago. So let's not do anything petty because it might come up in a conversation. It might come up like in a funny way. Do you remember you blocked me like 5 years ago? I think that was so funny. And maybe you'll be able to laugh about it, maybe not. But let's talk about how to handle if the ex reaches out on social media. What do we do? Yikes, right? Like, ah. So I don't know if have you ever had the ex reach out to you on social media? If you have, send me a message at Alicia Crosco on Instagram. Send me a message, like let me know how that went. But if the ex reaches out to you as the stepmom, depending on what it is and how your guys' relationship is, you can respond or not. And if it's not a good situation, you guys don't have a really good situation, I don't recommend responding, especially if it's just like a bashing, like you already know what I'm talking about. And if she's coming for you, like just sometimes silence is the best response. Sometimes no response is the best response. And if you're the type of stepmom that's like, but I feel better when I have the last word, girlfriend, I see you. But again, is this the hill you want to die on? Is this the turmoil that you want in your relationship? No. And do you really care what she thinks? No? Great. Don't bother responding. Please, for the love of God, don't bother responding. Sometimes hurt people, but sometimes it's just a battle. You don't have to attend every fight that you're invited to. You don't have to attend every battle that you're invited to. You'll never get anything done. Sometimes you don't need to respond on social media. And that's kind of overstepping a boundary, right? If they're reaching out to you and just like bashing you or send you this nasty message, that's kind of overstepping a boundary. So let's talk about the difference of overstepping versus being present for co-parenting. If the ex is coming in and just, like, I want you guys to parent this way in your house. The kids need to do this, that, and the other, like trying to dictate what's happening like on your scheduling time, like your custody time. There we go. I'm like, what is the word? The time that the kids are at your house, if she's trying to dictate what's going on, what you're feeding them, what play dates they have, that is obviously overstepping. But if she's just being there, being present for co-parenting thing, like if something happens, like one of the kids all of a sudden has to, like, broken arm is going to the hospital, or it has a massive surgery coming up or a doctor's appointment, and she wants the information about it. Is it frustrating or is it annoying that you have to deal with your partner's ex? Yes, it's that constant reminder that you're not the first, right? So there's all the emotions that come up with that: jealousy, insecurity, resentment, inferiority, like all of the things. But here's the thing. She just wants to know what's happening with her kid. She's not in there like, hey, Alicia, I'm just here to make your life hell. No, she's like, hey, that's my kid. Like, I want to know too. Because if the roles were reversed and your stepkid was with their mom and there was a surgery or a broken arm or like a doctor's visit, there's a good chance that your partner is going to want to know like what is going on. So a little bit of slack there. And same thing for parent teacher conferences, right? Like, she's probably going to be there because, again, it's her kid and she wants to know. She's not there to make your life a living hell. She's not there overstepping her boundaries. She's there to be present for co-parenting things. And here's how you can gently but firmly reinforce boundaries that you and your partner have. So let's go back to the whole, like, she's trying to dictate what's going on at your house and like on your guys' time. You guys can say, hey, you know what? Thanks so much for your input, and leave it at that and just stop talking. You guys can say, hey, thanks so much for your input. We are going to actually do X, Y, and Z. Or thanks for your input. We are doing this at our house. There's a lot of ways that you can do it. And if you get a lot of pushback, you can just keep repeating that. You don't have to, again, please do not attend every battle that you are invited to. Don't. Sometimes it's not worth it. Again, no response is the best response. Silence is the best response. Letting the other person have the last word is the best response. You don't need to attend all of it. Do what's right for your family. Obviously, like, as long as the kids are happy, healthy, safe, like all of the things, and they're not in danger. Like, you guys have boundaries for your home. You guys run your home a certain way. She runs her home a certain way. It's okay. You are not always going to see eye to eye on how things to go. And can we talk for a second about how to get your partner to support those boundaries without feeling like you're forcing a wedge? Because here's the thing, this isn't talked about enough, is your partner is caught in between everyone. Your partner is at the center of everything. Your partner is caught in between you and the ex. Your partner is caught between you and the kids. Your partner is caught between you and their family. Your partner potentially could be caught between you and your family. Like, there's so many things. And sometimes it's okay for you just to say, I'm going to sit this one out. I'm going to sit this one out. If you are coming in and you are dictating, like, in this house, we're going to do this, it's going to be the complete opposite of what she's doing, like out of spite, girlfriend, that's not going to work for you. But if you are collaborating together, the both of you, on this is how we want our house ran. When we talk about house expectations. If you are both collaborating on what that looks like, you're going to get a lot further along because he's got buy-in and he's going to be like, okay, this is what we're doing. Like, we're going to do this. But again, it is okay for you to sit some things out. Which brings me to self-care. I've talked about this recently quite a bit on the podcast. Like, self-care is so freaking important. Like, you need to find ways to stay sane and keep your peace, whether that is practicing a little bit of mindfulness, whether it's journaling, whether it's working out, any other stress relievers that you like. Like, I'd mentioned a few, like meeting up with the girlfriends, like going out for dinner, meeting for lunch, coffee, a glass of wine, whatever it is. Like, find something that fills your cup and is good for you. But also, like, vent safely. It sounds really funny, but like, vent safely. Maybe you have like that one friend that you can go and talk to. Make sure you are by yourself or no one else is home, or like in your car in a Target parking lot, like, ah, or write in your private journal. Or if you're inside the stepmom side community, rather than calling your friend when you're in the Target parking lot or like pulled up in your driveway or your garage, post in there. It's on an app, so it's so easy now just to like post in there, but make sure that you are able to have an outlet. You are able to get that anger, that frustration, whatever it is, out, because if not, it's going to make you feel freaking crazy. And speaking of crazy, you're not crazy for being frustrated, but it's how you deal with that that matters. It is okay for you to be frustrated, but it is not okay for you to flip out every single time that you're frustrated. It's not okay for you to do, the silent treatment every time you flip out, or, to give ultimatums or things like that. It's okay for you to feel frustrated. But again, it's how you deal with it that matters. So there's a lot of things that go into dealing with the ex or having the ex around. But the main things that I talked about today are talk to your partner, communicate with them, set your boundaries, protect your space, and prioritize your self care. And acknowledge that this is an ongoing process. And that's okay. Like everyone's healing journey is different. So you're not going to go like, zoop. Sometimes you might like go up and down, like a graph. And it's not always going to be on the up and up. You're going to have highs and lows. You're going to have ebbs and flows. It's going to be something that's going to take you a while to get. But like once you get it, you get it. But then there's still going to be like that one time that like get to you like out of nowhere. And if you've got your own experiences, send me a message at Alicia Crasco on Instagram, and maybe we can do questions for the next episode, like how do I handle this or how do I handle that? But here's the thing. You're not crazy. Like this stepmom gig is really, really freaking hard. You're not in this by yourself. I'm here for you. And I will chat with you next week. Thanks for taking time to listen to this week's episode. If anything was helpful or resonated with you, please share it on social media and tag me. I'm just at Alicia Crasco. And if you could leave a 5-star rating and a review while you're at it, that would also be really helpful. And if you find yourself struggling with your stepmom journey and you want a little bit more support without the hefty price tag of coaching, you might want to check out the Stepmom Side community, which is my own private community for stepmoms, where you get to connect with other stepmoms around the world and myself, where I hold weekly office hours and monthly group coaching. It's kind of like you have your own personal coach in your own back pocket. Again, without that hefty price tag. See you next week.